am Jillian Gadbois. I am the project coordinator at Bristol Elder Services, and today's presentation is brought to you by the Age and Dementia Friendly Coalition of Greater Fall River. As we know, those working in the aging service industry and caregivers in the Greater Fall River area play such a vital role in maintaining the care and well-being of our growing aging population. Being in such an important role can often feel overwhelming, as the needs of those they are caring for often outweigh the needs of the caregiver. Today, we have Mary Curlew, who is the Community Education and Training Specialist at Jewish Family and Children's Services. She is here with us to discuss how professionals in the aging service industry and caregivers can care for themselves while battling daily stressors that comes with caring for others. Hi, Mary. How are you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me, Jillian. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you.
I am too. We're so excited to have you. Thank you very much. So for our first question we know that stress is a struggle we can have at all times. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to redo that. We know that stress is a struggle we can have. What are some of the ways our body tells us that we are overwhelmed and worn down?
Thank you, Jillian. That's a great question. And especially, I thank you so much for bringing the idea of the body, because I think so much times we talk about stress, we think only about our emotions. And we're learning, especially over the past year, how impactful our thoughts, our emotions are indeed on our body. In fact, there's been lots of citation of that study that showed that social isolation alone and how we think about being alone or lonely, it has the same health impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So, our bodies react very much to stress. That can come out in physical pain, exacerbation of chronic health issues like diabetes or hypertension. You might think you're doing everything right according to the doctor, you're taking your medication, and you're still struggling with maintaining your diabetes. It could be related to stress. Also in our thoughts, the way we think about things. If you're finding yourself thinking primarily more negatively about life, if you're starting to feel more antagonistic towards people in your life, and that social component too, obviously is a really big one. If you find yourself wanting to stay away from people or becoming more argumentative, those can all be signs that stress is taking its toll. Big one also, sleep. I always ask people when I first meet with them, how is your sleep? And that's, based on age, we tend to sleep smaller chunks when we get older and not as long or as deep. So, judge it based on age also. But if your sleep has changed significantly, that could be a real sign that stress is having an impact on you.
Great. Now, would you be able to explain why our brains are hardwired to react this way to stressors?
Yeah, I really recommend this wonderful book by Robert Sapolsky called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And a lot of that reason is because we are hardwired, just like every other animal in the animal kingdom, to respond to stress and that fight, flight, freeze mentality. When we see a bear or a dog coming towards us and we're afraid of dogs, our body will start to produce all the hormones we need to be able to get ready to run or fight that wild animal. However, what's different from us and animals in the animal kingdom is that we often have stressors and we have our fight, flight, freeze go off when somebody gives us a dirty look, or we feel like we're not going to be able to get all those tasks, our house clean in time, or we know we have an inspection, or we need to bring our car in and we're worried about pricely cost to having our car repaired. We produce those same hormones, but we don't have anything to fight or flight from. We have to deal with it. We have to address it. And when we don't have that way of reacting to it, those stress hormones stay in our bodies and they can make us sick over time. It's really all about the mind, body, and social connection that we have with one another and with each other, and within ourselves as well.
Perfect. So with all of this stress and all of this anxiety that caregivers and those in the aging service industry might have, so there's this term that we like to use, self-care. Can you explain a little bit about what the common misconceptions of self-care might be?
Yeah, I'd love to actually. In fact, I have a couple of graphics that might help explain how self-care is really meant to work or is most effective. One of it is what I just mentioned, the mind-body social connection. When we think about self-care, we often focus immediately on that biological component, increasing exercise, taking a break from stress. Everybody keeps, the Calgon take me away commercials, if you remember those, that we take care of our bodies. We take a bath, we take vacation. So if I wish I could see if everybody in TV land out there, if I asked them how many times you took a vacation or walked away from something that was causing you a lot of stress, only to have to come back to it even more stress than when you left. If we don't react to these stressors in our lives, like I just mentioned, like animals do in the animal kingdom, those stress hormones still stay there even if we're avoiding the stressor, even if we're taking a bath, even if we're exercising. So it's really important that when we deal with stress or talk about stress, we take into component each one of these parts of our beings. Our biology, how we think about it is really, really important. Our sense of values, having a sense of purpose around why I'm having this stressor. There's lots of research that shows that if somebody has a sense of meaning, even in awful, horrible situations, like Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He was in the concentration camps during the Holocaust, and he showed that people who had a sense of purpose, even in the midst of really dire, horrible situations, were often able to survive much easier than people who did not have a sense of purpose. And then that social component. There's a fourth part about fight, flight, freeze that we often ignore or forget about, is that it's fight, flight, freeze, and friend and befriend. When we form those social connections, when we reach out for somebody, we activate that fight, flight, freeze, friend and befriend. And that can be a way also of reducing those stress hormones. So self-care is not all about avoiding the stressors. If anything, it's about processing and dealing with those stressors. Because if we don't, what happens is our sympathetic nervous system, what we've been talking about, continues to just pump out all those stress hormones. It continues to shut down our digestive system so we don't feel hungry, or we feel like eating way too much than we should. We either pee a lot or we don't pee at all. And when we do activate fight, flight, freeze, or we address the stressors, we engage our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the one that helps us feel more calm, more relaxed, more in control of the situations or the things that we're dealing with. And these are some of those things that we can do apart from just the, avoiding stress. These are some things that we can do that are real sort of self-care measures.
Yeah, that is great. So I love your concept of facing your anxieties instead of avoiding them. Like as we've said in a different workshop that we've been in together, it's not just all about bubble baths and eating chocolate to avoid your stressors. So those are great preventative measures. What would you recommend to somebody that would be in the middle of a very stressful situation? What are some coping strategies that you would recommend?
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. I encourage people, when you're thinking about addressing stress, is to think about yourself as a system. Just like I showed you that, the parasympathetic nervous system versus the sympathetic nervous system, your body is a system. And we know that when we're under high levels of stress, we tend to shut down a lot of our bodily functions, like our gastrointestinal system. That's why sometimes your mouth gets dry when you get really stressed. And so reversing that system can be really helpful by engaging your parasympathetic nervous system. One simple and really quick way to do that is to drink water. I know it sounds very, very simple and maybe a little bit too simple, but taking a sip of water when you're really stressed will activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Because if you think about it, if you were a zebra and there's a lion nearby, you are not going to stop to sip and put your head down and put yourself at risk to sip water. It's the same thing with our own bodies. We sip water, we tell ourselves, oh, I have nothing to run and fight, flight, freeze around. Another one is just paying attention. If you're feeling really stressed about something that's going on, and you just pause, take that deep, sort of very brief pause to notice anything that you hear, see, smell, or feel. Like if I was to do that, and I encourage you to do it now as well, and I just stopped and listened for a second, I'd hear the birds. I don't know if you can hear them on my screen, but I can hear the birds chirping outside. I can hear my computer screen buzzing. And that simple act of stopping those thoughts and going, I can't believe this is happening. He's getting me so angry. If he doesn't just stop doing this, I'm going to. In taking that brief pause, you're engaging your parasympathetic nervous system that then tells you, I wouldn't be stopping and listening to the birds if I was in crises. I would have shut down that function. I would only be paying attention to the stressor or the crises in front of me. So it's called sensate focus. It's just focusing on what you see, smell, hear, taste. Sipping on the water is another one. Sucking on a mint. And then my final last one, when you're really, really in dire straits, is something as simple as taking a cold pack or a cold water, a cold compress. We saw this in all the movies in the Victorian era. They would always put like smelling salts, keep themselves from passing out, or a cold pack right on your forehead. It's another great way to engage your parasympathetic nervous system and shutting down all those hormones that are pumping to get you to fight, flight, freeze. So some pretty easy, simple ones. Another one is just to question your thoughts. So I'm thinking this way about this. I'm feeling like this is not fair. Is there another way of looking at it? And sometimes just shifting your thoughts ever so slightly will also impact your stress reaction.
That's great. Well, those are all the questions that I have for you. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us.
If it's okay, I'd like to just go back to that, the idea of, things that people can do in the meantime, because I love that acronym NURSE. The NURSE is nutrition, understanding, rest, sense of purpose, and exercise. In many ways, we covered this already, but I encourage people to just write this down, write down this acronym. And I have to give credit to Jean Driscoll, by the way. She's a psychiatric nurse practitioner who taught me this acronym. But to think about, what am I eating? What am I taking into my body? What am I drinking enough water? And then the U is, am I getting connection? Am I with people who get me, understand me? Am I making those social connections? The rest is sleep, obviously. Exercise, obvious one. Getting exercise burns off all those hormones too. But I really encourage people to think about sense of purpose. Why am I doing this? What am I doing? What's really the value behind all this stressor? And if you can find a sense of purpose or sense of meaning, even in very dire times, your stress reaction will be less negative towards your body and less destructive to your body. So that's my shout out. Write down this acronym, everybody, and take care of yourselves. Don't avoid the stress.
Thank you, Mary, for joining us. If you have any questions, please give us a call for Bristol Elder Services at 774-627-1303. We would love to share more information about the Age and Dementia Friendly Greater Fall River Coalition with you. Thank you so much and have a great day.